Hey everyone, it's Dan and Don from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, that website is theclinicaltrialsguru.com. We do a lot of guest interviews. We call them our guest gurus, ranging on a variety of topics related to both just general healthcare and clinical trials. And today we're going to focus on both with Dusty Showers. And Dusty, he's pretty big personality in the breast cancer community, and he's going to tell you a lot more about it. He comes to us all the way from Florida. Is that correct, Dusty?
Yeah, I'm down in the Tampa area.
Ah, very good. Yeah, I know someone who just moved there. They're at the University of Southern Florida.
It's a great place.
Yeah, he's actually doing clinical trials there. So, Dusty, like I said, he's our guest guru today. We're going to focus on breast cancer and clinical trials related to breast cancer and anything else that Dusty's involved with, and he's going to be happy to share with us. So thank you very much for coming on, Dusty.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Now, I know a lot of our viewers probably already know who you are, but for those who don't, can you kind of give us an introduction, who you are, why you're involved in breast cancer awareness, and then we'll just go from there.
Well, the short story is in 2003, my former mother-in-law was diagnosed with breast cancer. She had a double mastectomy. And at the time, I thought that we really had a grasp on breast cancer. I saw the commercials and everyone in pink and that fist in the air and thought that breast cancer wasn't that big a deal. And what I found out was I was incredibly mistaken. So in 2005, my wife at the time said, hey, we're going to do this 3-day, 60-mile walk, and you're going to do it with us. And I just couldn't think fast enough to get out of it. I wasn't really bought into it, and I did it, and I fell in love with it. And so I continued into it. The next year we went through divorce, and she's a wonderful ex-wife, but we went through divorce. I was in real estate. The bottom dropped out. I was just totally lost in my life, but I did that 3-day walk again. And I was surrounded by women going through some really hard times, and they said, Dusty, you're wearing this pink bra. And I said, I don't think I'm going to do that. And they basically made me wear it. And, here I was. I thought that my life was completely empty and I had nothing left. And I found out I was dramatically mistaken. So over the next couple of years, they kept making me these bras. And I kept saying, I'll wear it just for this one event. And it's just continued to snowball. And initially, that's how I was recognized as, this guy out trying to help people get through these walks wearing a bra, and it's just completely snowballed. And people send me bras from around the country. I was on Oprah last year, and really the story kind of hit harder when 2 years ago my former wife Christy was diagnosed with breast cancer as well. And unfortunately, she came through it very strong. But I've got 2 little girls, and so they've seen their grandma with it, they've seen their mom with it, and since then I just became friends with countless survivors all around the world, and I'm truly dedicated to the cause.
Well, first of all, you're a brave man to walk that road.
Yeah, if you go to his Facebook fan page, which is what, Dusty?
It's Dusty Showers, the Second Baseman. We're in the process of starting a nonprofit that we call the Second Baseman.
Okay. For those of you who want to see pictures and get involved with Dusty, go to that Facebook fan page, Dusty Showers, the Second Baseman. So how long have you been involved in breast cancer awareness?
I got started back in 2005, and then it was just something that I did this event, and it was great, and it's just truly snowballed. So now it truly consumes about 90% of my time. I have a business where I'm a humane wildlife trapper, but the majority of my time is spent in breast cancer related activities.
Okay. Now, in your interactions with the breast cancer survivors or people struggling with breast cancer and dealing with breast cancer, I'm sure the topic of clinical trials has come up numerous times. Can you kind of give our audience a little bit of information about your experiences or your secondary experiences, I guess, through your relationships with the people who've either participated in trials or have been interested in trials for breast cancer?
Mm-hmm. Clinical trials are, I don't know if double-edged sword is the right word, but it's been a blessing for some people. I clearly know that the clinical trials have come through and been an absolute blessing, but just recently, we have a friend who's stage 4 metastatic. She's 28 years old, and she's running out of options. So clinical trials are one of those things. And she spent about 4 months in one, and it was basically her last hope. And she told the community that the trials were working and her tumors were being reduced. And there were some severe effects from the trials, some physical effects that came from them. And then what we came to find out a little bit later is that they actually had no effects on her. So she did go through the physical side effects of the chemo that she was going through, just to find out that there was no change in what was going on. Another friend who's also running out of options, and she was another young survivor. And I was with her when she was waiting to hear back if she was going to be approved for another trial. And this is, when you get to this point, that's your last hope. So you're putting all your eggs in this basket, and I think you kind of even want to do it, even if they say, well, it probably won't work. But, when you don't have any other options, that's what you try. And when she was turned down for that trial, that's when I was with her. Her response, we were in Orlando at the time, she said, well, I guess I'm going to continue checking off things on my bucket list. And I got a picture from her later, which was her kissing Mickey Mouse. So, the trials, they go both ways. And that's what it is. It's a trial, and you're looking to see if it's going to work.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's and Don, I know you have some questions too, do you think this is because Don and I covered this topic a few times, and we've interviewed some people involved in oncology trials. Do you think there's a sense of false hope being given in order to recruit more people into these cancer trials? Or, is that kind of what you've been seeing?
When you have hardly any hope left, sometimes false hope is the only thing that you can go on. Mm-hmm. So, if there's an ounce of, not an ounce of hope, but if there's an ounce of evidence that this might work, I do believe in it. We're searching so hard for a cure. Mm-hmm. I have no idea how far away we are from it. It seems like we're pretty far. We're treating, the disease of cancer much better than we were years ago, but we're not curing it at all. So I think you have to throw a lot of stuff up at the wall. I think you just have to be upfront when you talk to these people what they can really expect from it. And if there's a 1 in 2 billion chance that this is going to benefit them, they need to know that and let them make that decision. Because, of course, when you're dying, you don't have that many options. So it's hard to say, well, there's a slight option, but we don't want to get your hopes up, so we're not going to do it.
Right.
Some of the conversations, it's funny. It's not funny, but it's coincidental we're talking about this subject because I just ran into a couple of reps from one of the major pharmaceutical companies a couple of days ago, and they're working in oncology. And they were telling me that they've been able to identify the actual precursors to a lot of these different cancers. It's just now is working on stuff to actually either control it or cure it. Mm-hmm. And you're right, it's a major climb. I think that we've made a lot of progress. If you go back 10, 15, 20 years ago, if you're looking at steps 1 through 10, we were at step, I think, a half a step. Versus now we're working our way up those stairs. But you're absolutely right. When nothing else is working, any little hope that you can grab onto is better than no hope, even if it's just, keeps the mind going. And because I'm attending actually a funeral service tomorrow for my wife's cousin who died from cancer. And they tried everything. I don't know if they tried research, and that's the other thing for me is that I think also in the public too, and I'm glad that there is somebody like you out there who's leading the fight, who's been a soldier for a lot of women out there with breast cancer. But sometimes trying to get family members to look in this direction as an alternative, if nothing else is working, is a little difficult sometimes because people have I think sometimes a negative stigma about research. And you coined it early on, it is what it is. Yeah, and in some instances work. I know examples of a couple of people that have gone through research with cancer where it's actually worked for them. And I know equally you can look at the examples of other studies that haven't worked for the individual.
It's a very complex thing, and and I work primarily with breast cancer, but I tell people cancer is cancer. When you really get down to it, it's not. What liver cancer is different than brain cancer, which is different than breast cancer, and the way that it affects people and the way that it affects sexes, and we don't even know what's causing it. So when we say, we're getting closer and closer to a cure, well, until we're getting closer to, well, right now they say early detection is the key, but that's not the cure. So I believe that we are pretty far away from it, since there are so many different varieties of cancer. We don't know what's causing it, and and until we continue to research it, we're not going to know these things. So research is clearly it's critical to it. It's just we have to go into it with our eyes wide open and people understanding what to expect from it, and not give false hopes.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about the early detection, and then there's a little bit of controversy around that for breast cancer. Can you kind of explain to our audience a little bit about that?
Well, I'm definitely a proponent of breast self-exams. They should be done once a month, about a week after a woman's period is over. That's when breast self-exams should be done. There's even a proper way for doing it. But I was at I try to attend any educational things that I can, and the researchers were saying that there's no evidence that breast self-exams save lives, or that they benefit women at all. And I hear countless times of women saying that they found their lumps through self-exams. So granted, it's anecdotal, but when you've got so many people saying that's how I found it, and I was fortunate enough to have lunch with the researcher, and he said this to me, because this is on my business card, that I promote self-exams. And he looked at me and said, well, how do you address the facts or the statistics that say that they don't save lives? And, I like to think that I'm a bright enough guy that I can look at numbers and say, well, I'm not going to tell you that things are different than what the actual numbers of the research say. So I can really only fall back in saying that what they're looking at is it creates more false diagnosis, and women going through the troubles of false diagnosis or false positives than if they weren't to do self-exams at all. So, and I don't know if that's clear, but what you're saying is that too many women are being diagnosed that don't actually have breast cancer. So that probably skews the numbers, because when you have so many people that are finding the lumps themselves, they really are benefiting themselves. It's just the false positives are throwing off those numbers. So I'm not in a position to change my stance on that yet. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. Yes, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so Dusty, now, from your experiences, the people who have done clinical trials or have wanted to do clinical trials for breast cancer, have they had any issues with their insurance companies not allowing them to join trials? Because I know that's been an issue of controversy in the clinical trials industry.
Yes. That can be a real hard thing. And actually, the mission of the nonprofit that we're starting is to try to help fund some of these treatments that women can't otherwise afford. If insurance isn't picking it up, sometimes you're looking at $40,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And insurance companies don't necessarily like to spend money on something like that if they're not going to get, if there's little evidence that it's going to work. So you've got women that are in a bind, and it's easy to just hear, for just a layperson to hear, well, treatments are expensive, we're going to have some fundraisers and raise this money. But when you're looking at $10,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 a month, you're also looking at somebody that's going to lose their house. Their kids are going to be turned upside down. The spouse might not be able to take it, so the husband decides to leave. So you're left with somebody that's in a very, very, very traumatic position. And I don't know what the answer is. The insurance companies are a business. But I think that there are certain businesses that you're in that you have to have a responsibility to the community.
Yeah, and you kind of answered one of the questions I was going to ask, and that's if you got someone who has no insurance and they believe that they may have cancer. I mean, where do they go? What do they do?
It's a very tough position. And one of the things that, when I initially started doing this, I said, well, we need to go into some of the lower income areas, and we go in there with a mammogram van, or we do something, give out vouchers to give mammograms. And the question that just kept coming back to me was, well, what if they find breast cancer? Then what are they going to do? And that's a very, very sad question, because there's not always an answer for it. And that's what happens in a lot of these lower income areas, is that women just don't go get their exams. Number one, because they can't afford a mammogram. And number two, they can't afford treatment if they do find something. But there are amazing organizations that are out there that try to help fund those gaps. And, unfortunately, there are people that when their needs aren't met by certain organizations, they turn around and bash that organization. But, these are charities and they're nonprofits, and they're trying to help as many people as they can, but they just can't help everybody. So, but there are answers. We just had this on my Facebook, where a gentleman in his, I believe in his early 40s, was facing cancer, 3 kids, no insurance, and he had no idea where to turn. And fortunately, my Facebook lit up with all sorts of different options. He was up in a northern state. And so there are options out there, but a lot of times you have to do your homework to figure out where they are.
Now, most of those options, would they be clinical trials, or are there other options for someone, let's say, without insurance?
I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine that it's probably going to be more mainstream treatments that have shown some evidence, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay. And we're going to get into, now that we're transitioning into the topic of fundraising, which is something you're involved with. I know that there's a clinical trial law that is going to be going into effect hopefully in a few years. I know it just passed the Congress. It's going to make it illegal for insurance companies to discriminate against people who have participated in trials. So that should help some of the cancer participants, because one of their fears is that, well, I can join this trial, but I run the risk of losing all my benefits if I do join, because there is a clause, currently there is a clause where, if you do join a trial and you suffer some kind of side effect, your insurance company is not responsible for covering that, and that will be illegal in a few years. So at least there is some progress into that. Now, a little bit about fundraising. Can you tell us what you do and how you're involved on that end of breast cancer?
Absolutely, and that's great news too about the law coming out, because we do need to offer more protection to families that go through this. The fundraising has been something that I initially started to do for some of these walks that I do. I'm doing 4 of them this year, and each of them are $2,300 each. And but fortunately, I'm in a position now where people are offering to help, and I've got more people offering to help than I can handle. So I brought on, of course, I'm in breast cancer, so it was women that have turned out to be some of the best supporters for me. So my friend Mara is trying to organize a lot of this, and I just brought on another friend named Joanne, who is with, it looks like she's with the Pink Heels Tour, which is a fireman, and they do awesome stuff. She's going to be helping me with my fundraising. And so what I really want to do is raise as much money as I can so that we can help as many families that are going through, some of these trials that we've talked about. I say trials generically, but money is the key, regardless of if it's research, if it's paying the bills. Some of these women just have to have their electric bills turned on so their kids can wake up and go to school while the mom is going through treatment. So, but ideally, what I want to do is bring this nationwide, even internationally eventually. But I try to do unusual fundraisers. I just had my 3rd annual Hoedown for Hooters, and yeah, it's a country thing. We do it at a country bar. I do catch a little bit of flack for I truly 100% love the cause. I respect it. I respect women, but I try to walk an edge that makes some people look at it and say, well, I think what he's doing isn't quite right. If they know me, they'll understand where my heart is. But you want to be a little edgy in what you're doing. So, and that's where the bra comes in as well. Some people will look at that and say, well, that's disrespectful. But on the same hand, I've got countless survivors that I believe will back me up. And so I do it to get attention, but I don't do it to get attention for me. And that's the way my fundraisers are built too. I do it so that people will look at me and then I can say, all right, thanks for looking at me, but this is why I do it. Because 1 in 8 women get breast cancer, because families are being torn apart, because spouses are being neglected, because the primary person with cancer is going through all that. So, we'd like to try to focus a little bit on supporting the spouses as well. But unusual fundraisers are a dime a dozen. So we try to do them a little bit different. We encourage people to come out, wear bras, both men and women. And I knew that I started to take the turn when I no longer had to wear a bra at my fundraisers, but other guys were fighting to wear mine. And I thought that was the greatest thing in the world.
Now, are you, at your fundraisers, are you getting a lot of turnouts?
Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, I don't know what a big turnout is, but 200 or 300 people coming out,
Okay.
and we're trying to get bigger. I'm not real good at asking for things, so I like to think I can talk. I can talk from my heart. I'm very sincere about what I do, but when it comes out and comes to asking for things, I'm not very strong at that. So that's where I've been able to bring these other women in that especially the two that work very close, they're both survivors, and they can go out and they can ask for things. And that's the key is if you have something that's not quite your strength, you find somebody that does have that strength, and that makes it a great partnership.
Yeah, Dusty, I gotta commend you for definitely taking a unique approach to the branding yourself. That's actually how I got a hold of you. I saw this guy wearing a bra and then all these comments underneath his picture. And of course, I saw clinical trials in there, and I said, hey, man, people are actually commenting. This guy must be doing something worthwhile. And then I of course, saw your fan page there on Facebook, which is Dusty Showers, the second baseman. So I definitely commend you for that. And I was going to ask you if you've had any criticism, which you've answered, that there are some people who think you're being a little too silly, right?
Yeah, and I don't hear about it much. Just recently, I heard through the grapevine that somebody had commented on the name of my fundraiser, but and it was a group of survivors that are bloggers, and they also commented on the apparently, as I heard it, a friend of mine has a Ophelia Ruby's Foundation, and they didn't think that was appropriate. But the founder of that is a survivor, and the thing is, we all have different opinions, and we're all like a puzzle. And we have different pieces, and we fit those pieces together. So what I might do might not appeal to everybody, but then somebody else should have something else that appeals to them. And I'm not here at all to argue or defend my position with anybody, especially survivors. But I do, it's important that they know that I do this with all my heart. And if they don't like what I do, I apologize. But if I do get survivors are my beacon. So if I am getting approval from them, I'm going to continue to do that, and I believe that I have enough approval from survivors that I'm going to continue to do that. But I'm really not interested in making everybody happy. So if we do that, we're not getting enough attention. But about the Facebook comments, that's really when I have my best days, is when we can put something up there with substance. I do some playing stuff with, like I just put up a picture of a snake I just caught because I'm a humane wildlife trapper, but when I can put something up with substance and say, hey, somebody needs some help or we need some information, it's not me that's giving that information. I've got countless people that have gone through this saying that, hey, this is work. So none of this is about me. And if I was by myself, none of this would work. It all happens because I've got so many other people that are on board that are willing to help out. So it's truly a team effort.
Now, you mentioned you were on Oprah. Was it? Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Did I read your mind, Don?
Yeah, because I was looking some stuff up here, and I saw Dusty Showers and Oprah, and I was trying to get back to that, and Dan asked you that question.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, talk to us a little bit about that. When was that? How did that happen? And then I'm going to ask a follow-up question, which you may answer if you want. I'm sure with an appearance like that, have any pharma companies approached you as maybe being a spokesperson or an advocate for breast cancer?
I haven't heard that yet, but that's one of the steps that we're looking to take. And the Oprah thing was, it's not like I sat down on the couch and I got interviewed with her. One of my supporters submitted my story, and it was actually a male makeover thing. I said, well, I'm not really interested in that. But she said, no, I sent him pictures of the bra and everything. And so I went out there, and it was with some other guys that are that haven't really had a lot done to themselves in years. And I'm bald, so it's not like I had bad hair, and I dress somewhat nice, I think. But I was with Tim Gunn from Project Runway, and Tim just looks at me and he goes, what am I going to do with this? So they ended up waxing my back. They showed a whole lot of pictures and video of me in the bra. They showed up to one of my fundraisers. And so there's clearly pictures of me in the bra, and they put pink chaps on me. But then when I came out, I was dressed in gentleman's clothes with a pink tie. I got to give Oprah a hug and a kiss. I said, on behalf of my friends with breast cancer, I want to give you a kiss, and she was great. So it wasn't a giant sit on the couch appearance, but it was a good time. But she didn't say my website, and she didn't say my last name. So while I got a lot of attention from it, and I'm absolutely truly grateful for it, it didn't blow up my world like I had hoped.
Yeah, right. Because you hear about that Oprah effect all the time. People would kill for that opportunity. But so yeah, that was gonna be my follow-up question. How did your Facebook page? How was it affected because of your appearance on Oprah, or was that before Facebook was kind of popular?
No, this it aired about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, and it was fun. Watching my phone blow up between the text messages and the friend requests and just the Facebook post while it happened. It was really a lot of fun. We had actually a viewing party at a place called Pete and Shorty's, which is owned by Hooters, and we've got the original Hooters here. And on the same show, they also did a makeover for a Hooters manager. So we had a giant party, and all the Hooters, the big dogs and the founders and everyone were there. And so it was a very exciting time between my friends and I have very close friends at Hooters as well. And then just watching everything kind of blow up. But I didn't get the true Oprah effect because, like I said, she didn't say that stuff. But you could never be upset about not being on Oprah. For me to say that I was on it. So it was great. I'm happy for it.
Yeah, I can't imagine someone being on Oprah and saying, "Man, that sucks."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's wonderful. She was really cool, and I had a time of my life.
Beautiful.
Well, Dusty, as we conclude the interview, what advice do you have for someone? And we kind of talked about this early on, but let's say someone's watching, they've just been diagnosed with breast cancer, or they just realized that they have it. What is your advice?
Well, number one, prior to that, do your self-exams. Tell other people to do their self-exams. If you are facing breast cancer, get all the information that you can. But you also have to be careful of too much information, too much advice from other people. Everybody, when you get hit with cancer, everybody wants to give you their advice, send you to their guy, tell you to eat their kind of food. They want to say, don't go to doctors because you can just eat this kind of food and this will help you. These kind of herbs will cure you. Take all the advice and put that in one little pile, through that, figure out what you want to do, and decide what you want to do, and do that, and don't ever look back. And don't be afraid to question your doctors. The doctors work for you.
Absolutely.
That's a very good point there.
Absolutely. Now, what about, and just like in your case, well, it was your ex-wife, but what about in the case that you have a family member, whether it's a spouse or a sister or a mother, from a man's perspective, where should you go with it?
My position when she was diagnosed was we were already divorced, but we're still very close. And when she was diagnosed, I went through a lot of those emotions where I was, number one, stunned. I couldn't believe it at first. And then I was angry because I truly have dedicated my life to this, and then to find out that it could hit somebody so close to me, it was difficult. So I tried to quickly gather my thoughts and figure out what I was going to do. And I went out looking for help. I contacted some of the organizations that I know and said, hey, I need some help. What do you think? And I got the information that I believed was relevant, and I presented it to her, and I left it alone. So I said, Chrissy, here's just some stuff that I found out. Literally, I'll leave it on the table. If you find benefit in it, great. If you don't, I'll never ask you about it again.
Okay.
But as the spouse, the spouses do get forgotten, and they need attention, and that's not always going to come from, and I see cancer in general. This can happen if the man has cancer. The woman could be a bit neglected as well. So, the spouse has to have some outlet for sanity, some outlet for attention. So, it's a difficult thing, but they're a partnership, and I guess they have to understand that each other needs something in this.
And I'm glad you mentioned the part about questioning your doctor, because we focused on this before when it comes to clinical trials, and we've interviewed experts on this as well. They said, well, when it comes to life-threatening conditions, clinical trials is often, not always, but often the best alternative. But it's very rare, extremely rare if it's ever offered as one of the first alternatives. So there is a disconnect between doctors who understand clinical trials, or maybe they have other motives and other intentions for not referring someone to a clinical trial. So it's very good that you bring that up, and for those of you viewers out there interested, just research some of our other interviews where we discuss life-threatening conditions, because sometimes the doctors sometimes the doctors do not present the best alternatives immediately. So it takes an informed patient, an e-patient, if you will, much like e-patient Dave, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with e-patient Dave, Dusty. But he's he's a huge advocate for doing your homework and empowering yourself as a patient, as someone who's recently diagnosed with life-threatening conditions. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I support that 100%. There's nothing wrong with it, and you should actually talk to multiple doctors. You shouldn't feel intimidated or bullied by your doctor, and if you do get those feelings, you need to look elsewhere. Be comfortable with who's treating you.
Yep. Don, anything else you'd like to add?
No, all I can say is keep up the good work, and I do take my hat off to you. And you and I sure look good, don't we?
Yeah, and I'll put mine on for you. But I do like your haircut, though. It looks great.
Thank you. So do yours.
Yeah.
But,
hey, I truly appreciate this opportunity. Thank you, guys, and thanks for everything you're doing.
You're very welcome, Dusty.
Thank you, Dusty, and we will post this on your Facebook page. It's Dusty Showers, the second baseman. This is Dan and Don from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.